So many times in the past, I've made someone else bad and wrong because my interaction with them, especially in a breakup, some of those feelings that rise up feel so scary that it made it easier for me to blame the woman that I was breaking up with, to call her bad and wrong, instead of seeing her as a tender human being who has been wounded, and so she's acting in a way that's hurtful to me. It was cowardice of me to abandon my wisdom and make her bad and wrong. I realized last night that in many of my past breakups with women, that right before the breakup and during the breakup and after the breakup, I tended to demonize them. And what I mean by that is I made them into an enemy in my own mind. I made them bad. I made them wrong. I didn't really see them as human beings. I saw them as something bad. That's what I mean by demonizing. I saw them as an enemy. And I realized that that is just cowardice on my part. I'm not saying that they didn't have genuinely hurtful behavior, because some of them did some of the time. That behavior wasn't cool. It's why I left. But were they really bad? Were they really an enemy? My own highest understanding, my own psychological understanding from studying psychology and doing personal growth work, and my spiritual understanding from having spiritual insights and from studying spiritual teachings, I've learned that there's no such thing as an enemy anywhere in this universe. I've learned that when someone does something hurtful to me, it's not because they're bad, it's because they're hurting. There's something in them that's hurting, and perhaps they aren't wanting to feel it, and perhaps it feels overwhelming and terrifying and even life-threatening for them to feel what's going on in their own psyche, and so they act hurtfully instead. And when they act hurtfully to me and it starts to hurt me, what I've done is I've abandoned my wisdom so many times. I've abandoned my psychological wisdom, which understands that people only hurt us when they're hurting and when they're confused. They've been given bad teachings. There's ignorance on the intellectual level of themselves and other people. And there's fear. That's why people hurt me. That's why I hurt other people sometimes. But I've abandoned that psychological understanding, and then I abandoned my spiritual understanding, which I've seen so many times that everything in this universe is made of consciousness. And consciousness, when it's unified, that's what we call God. That's what we call the divine. When a consciousness sees the whole, that's God. That's love. That's supreme awareness. And I've seen that every object, including you and this camera and the computer screen you're looking at, and me and this chair and this table, and all of my ex-girlfriends and ex-wives and friends and family and the kids in my elementary school who used to tease me for being fat when I was growing up, Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Republicans and Democrats, Catholics and Protestants and Hindus and Buddhists, everyone, everything, every species of plant and animal, every planet, every star, all of these things they're just consciousness. They're God. They are love. So I know that. I know that with more certainty than I know that I am this body or that this is real. And yet, what happens? What do I do when someone's doing something that feels threatening to me and that feels painful to me, so often in my life, even after understanding the true nature of things, I have run from my own feelings. The way I ran from them was making the other person bad, making them enemy, making them wrong. I'm not saying, of course, that we should let people abuse us. We can separate having boundaries from our inner experience. Outer boundaries, saying no to someone who's hurting us, that's perfect. We have to do that, right? But we don't have to see them as bad, as an enemy. We don't have to see their identity as wrong, like who they are is wrong. Their behavior might be wrong, but we don't have to see them as wrong. So I see that that's the mistake I've made in so many breakups. And I see that I got angry at them and made them bad and wrong because it helped me to not feel the loss. When we broke up, when their behavior kept hurting me and I felt like I needed to leave, leaving them, even if it was me who left them, broke my own heart. And what does that mean? It broke my heart. It means that wounded parts of my psyche, like in the internal family systems therapy model, which I wholeheartedly endorse, our psyche, our mind, especially when we go through a traumatic experience, there can be parts of our psyche that carry the feelings of those experiences for us, for the total system, because those feelings might have been overwhelming. They might have been terrified. For example, when I was a young boy, my dad would sometimes get drunk and violent, and my mom, on a few occasions, snuck us out of the bedroom window to get away from him. There's some other really scary things that happened to me in early childhood that I'm somewhat in touch with. But basically what happens is when those feelings start to rise up in me, it feels like someone has handed me a live stick of dynamite with the fuse burning, and that if I don't throw that thing, the very worst outcome possible for me is about to happen. When these feelings, these old feelings rise up that these wounded parts of my psyche are carrying for me, when they rise up, they can just feel utterly intolerable. They just feel utterly horrible. I don't know if you've had this experience. Some of us keep such a tight lid on our feelings that we don't come into contact with these parts of ourselves. We have protectors and managers and firefighters in the IFS language. We have these parts of our psyche that work really hard to keep those feelings stuffed down so that we don't have to feel them. And we may even have organized our entire life in a way that's solely designed to make sure we never feel them. Some people who are very successful in a worldly sense, they're highly educated, they're very wealthy, they never have to worry about paying bills, they have multiple properties. They've done all of that, not because it was their soul's longing, their life mission in this lifetime to do that. They did it because they're so afraid to feel what might happen if they hadn't done that. In other words, they did all of that to help keep the scary feelings at bay, to keep them squished down and hidden inside. I can see that so many times in the past I've made someone else bad and wrong because my interaction with them, especially in a breakup, which can be really painful for me as someone who feels things really deeply. I'm not really good at turning off my feelings like some people are. Some of those feelings that rise up feel so scary that it made it easier for me to blame the woman that I was breaking up with, to call her bad and wrong, to see her as the embodiment of badness and wrongness, instead of seeing her as a tender human being, a form of divine consciousness, just like me, who has been wounded and misled her whole life by society, by the teachings that come to us from this modern society that we live in. Bad teachings, almost no real support healing her wounds. And so she's acting in a way that's hurtful to me. And I acted in a way that was hurtful back. It was cowardice of me to abandon my wisdom and make her bad and wrong. I've committed myself to not do this anymore. Starting a couple years ago, when I was having problems with some managers, I was working somewhere and the managers were treating me in a way that I felt was unfair, unjust, hurtful. That's when I really decided I'm not gonna dislike these people. These bad bosses, some people might call them that. I decided I wasn't gonna abandon myself like I've done in the past. I was gonna keep seeing them as good and just confused. And I could see exactly how they were confused. I can see it in myself sometimes. We get confused. We make mistakes. It doesn't make us bad. A child makes mistakes, and yet we don't see them as bad, right? Grown-ups are children too, in a certain way. Human beings are all children in a certain way. So I'm going through another breakup right now. Broke up with someone a few weeks ago, and I'm kind of going deeper and deeper into feeling the feelings, the forbidden feelings that are down inside. The ones that feel so intolerable. I'm inviting them. I am welcoming them. I'm staying soft. My belly, when I remember, I just breathe and let it be soft. My heart, when I remember, I take the armor off, I throw it away, and I let my heart be tender. And I am not going to demonize or pathologize the woman that I was involved with, because that's, for me, cowardly. She was doing the best she knew how to do. So was I. It didn't work out. And that's okay. And it's bringing up these wounded parts that carry feelings that are so painful, it's almost like they're radioactive. It's almost like they're lava, hot lava. And so I'm just dedicating myself for the next couple of months to feeling and welcoming and refusing the seductive call to make her bad, wrong, enemy, so that I can close my heart and not feel what I'm actually feeling inside my body. Feelings that have been here long before I ever even met this woman. She's not responsible for them. She didn't put them in me. They're old feelings, and it's time for me to feel them. It's always our choice to feel, feeling, welcoming, refusing to demonize other people. It's always our choice. If we do want to keep demonizing other people, just know that we are dooming ourselves to repeat the same pattern of whatever happened between us and them. By making them the demon, projecting it onto them, rejecting them, fighting them, we are prolonging and perpetuating our own inner healing. And we will just keep repeating the same scenario in other people. It's our choice, but repeating the same pattern, boy, it's a really unsatisfying path. That's why I'm talking about this. Maybe I'm inspiring you to join me in this enemy-less path where we take responsibility for our own feelings and we do our best to feel them and heal them. What else are we gonna do?